Hi everyone, Ed Robertson, hoping you're enjoying the holiday weekend. We are taking a few days off ourselves and we'll be back with a brand new edition of TV Confidential next week. In the meantime, we thought we'd bring you what we'll call a blast from the past, an excerpt from one of our conversations that you may have heard before, but probably haven't heard in a long time. We hope you'll enjoy.
How do you wake up America?
With Bill Butel, Stephanie Edwards, and Peter Jennings.
Let's move on to January 6, 1975. ABC debuted AM America.
AM America as opposed to Good Morning America. Although, just doing a little fact-checking before we started recording, this was the precursor to the show we now know as GMA.
Yeah.
Although it was an offshoot of a local show that originated in Los Angeles, I believe.
AM Los Angeles, which when I was very small was Ralph Story and Stephanie Edwards. Ralph Story stayed with Los Angeles Broadcasting until we lost him a few years ago. You had brought it up, and it's one of the first things I think of. He did a show on KABC-TV, which is the
local
PBS
affiliate down here,
called Things That Aren't There Anymore, and it still plays. Mm-hmm. And I still have my VHS tapes of this show because there were two. Things That Aren't There Anymore and More Things That Aren't There Anymore. And they were playing it during the pledge drive, and Stephanie Edwards, who goes back, was there talking about Ralph and Ralph's widow. But it was all of these old things in L.A. that some people probably don't realize are long gone. Different Palisades Park, and they talked about Angel's Flight, which is a kind of an elevator / trolley that would take people up a hill. You probably had something comparable. Incline, yeah. Incline. Thank you. And amusement parks like Busch Gardens and Lion Country Safari and things like that are long gone, which are very very nostalgic. And it was a wonderful show. But when they did AM Los Angeles, a lot of local stories, news, fluff, like you would see today. Keep in mind the budgets were not as big, and the technological advances were not that far, but they were just those people that you like to have that breakfast television. If you were, not the Captain Kangaroo demographic on CBS, these were just the morning people that you would see. And
as we alluded to, it was ABC's first attempt to compete directly against
the Today
Show,
which was more news-oriented.
Stephanie Edwards was one of the original co-anchors of AM America, along with Bill Butel. I understand Stephanie Edwards left the show after about 4 or 5 months, which is usually not a good... It goes back to stuff we talked about before. Sometimes it takes a few months for a show to find its footing, and if you're changing on-air personnel or if you're changing behind-the-scenes personnel, that's usually not a good sign, for the future. At least that's an indicator that things are not working for whatever reason or not. And
Stephanie stayed constantly working for a long, long time in local. And so, there are some people that do wonderfully in local and don't translate to the national audience. Yeah. And the funny thing is, a lot of people come to L.A. because that is one of the potential stepping stones to a national stage. New York, Chicago also. You would have people, Regis did AM Los Angeles with Sarah Purcell. Right. And within a couple of years, Regis was doing the same thing in New York, and Sarah was on Real People.
And there's no rhyme or reason to why someone translates locally, but not necessarily nationally.
Another local talent, Steve Edwards, who had a short stint on Entertainment Tonight, is still doing morning television with the Fox affiliate. Just never struck the national chord. And maybe they are just too California, or somebody's too New York that doesn't translate to the national audience.
Or it may have been, it was too similar to today. AM American. Concept-wise, it may have been too similar to today. Whereas with Good Morning America, it's more. There's a news element to it, but it's a little more eclectic, a little more of a magazine.
It's ABC Entertainment as opposed to ABC, or ABC Entertainment as opposed to ABC News.
Yeah. Yes,
so
NBC. I mean, and sometimes depending on the time period, NBC would open the Today Show. I mean, it was, from NBC News, it's today, so for a period they would use that in the cold opening. You always knew that was a news program first and foremost.
To this day.
Yeah.
And, GMA and ABC, it shifted from one to the other. But remember, you have to go back to this time. There were 3 networks. CBS had The Captain in the morning.
And Douglas Edwards from 7 to 8.
Exactly. NBC had the Today Show, and depending on your market, you might have a local, now we have, like a pre-Today Show. Some markets, they were experimenting with early Today if you didn't have a local version. But here we always had,
Dawn.
the local news, news weather, local stuff, and then the local news breaks. So they had a very good system, and GMA was trying to find their signature.
Yeah.
Now all 3 pretty much do the same thing,
Sure.
and you have producers with 3 monitors looking at what the other 2 are doing.
Not only do all 3 more or less do the same, but the variations on the cable networks, both I guess Fox and Friends, which is Fox News channels,
Yes.
answer to GMA and the Today Show.
A coffee table, lots of coffee cups. Yeah.
Yeah, or Morning Joe
Yeah.
on
MSNBC?
MSNBC, and the one on CNN whose name escapes me.
But I would say the difference is a lot of times with the Today Show, they would open and there's a news desk.
Yeah.
It's a big one that everyone can be behind, and then GMA would open and it's a coffee table. And
More relaxed atmosphere.
So they had different looks there, and they were trying for something different.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay Area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
Be part of our conversation. If you like what you hear, have thoughts on this week's program, or have an idea for a future edition of TV Confidential, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at talk@tvconfidential.net, talk@tvconfidential.net. You can also message us at facebook.com/TV Confidential, x.com/TV Confidential, or at TV Confidential on Instagram. And if you're listening to us on the TV Confidential podcast, please be sure to hit the subscribe button.